How can hippies do this? If you can use that, I don't know.
All right. Is this on? Can you hear me? So I'd like to introduce Jay Hogan, and then following Jay will be Anthony Chavez. And they're going to do a few readings. They're both dear friends of Robert and picked out some things that are meaningful both to Robert and themselves. And so we'll do the readings, and then I'll get us going on, I'll start us off on the sharing time, and then we'll have a few family member line up, but then we're going to open it up to everybody. So think of your stories. Get them ready.
Robert was a wizard. That was my first impression of him when I met him in 1983. And that was a recurring impression I had of him, and a word I used to describe him to other people. You know, he's a kind of wizard. He's really kind and smart and loving. He knows how to get things done with magic. Earlier this year, I went over to Robert's house one day, and I didn't call ahead. I didn't knock on his door either. I didn't ring the bell. I just let myself in. There's only one house in the whole world besides my own that I would ever do that, and it's Robert and Laura's house. If no one was there, I was just going to leave my duck eggs in the fridge, but as it happened, Robert walked into the living room, surprised to see me and glad, and we had a great visit. And sitting at his table, I said to him, "Robert, I'm planning to someday be a really old man, and I would sure like it if you would go there with me." He gave me a funny look, as if to say, you don't get to choose that. Robert lives in all of us, and I'm especially grateful for Arwen. He really lives through her and her sons and her wonderful family. I'm grateful for Laura and her amazing extended family. And I'm ever grateful for this family that Robert nurtured in so many ways for so many decades. I've been asked to read a poem. This is by the Chilean poet Pablo Neruda. If I die, survive me with such sheer force that you awaken the furies of the pallid and the cold. From south to south, lift your indelible eyes. From sun to sun, dream through your singing mouth. I don't want your laughter or your steps to waver. I don't want my legacy of joy to die. Don't call up my person. I am absent. Live in my absence as if in a house. Absence is a house so vast that you will pass through its walls and hang pictures on the air. Absence is a house so transparent that I, lifeless, will see you living. And if you suffer, my love, I will die again.
Hi. Hi. It's an honor to be here to talk about our dear friend. He touched so many. Robert was a Buddhist and believed when we leave our bodies, we manifest another way. He is not gone. He is only untethered, and now one with all of us. A few days after the news, I was up late in my backyard feeling sad and in bewilderment. Then an undeniable sensation came over me. Robert was up in that tall, dark maple tree in my neighbor's yard. Crouching on a top branch, he was grinning at me and wearing my favorite Jerry Garcia at the OCF t-shirt. Okay, so I'm gonna read a passage. I think Robert would have enjoyed it. It's from a book titled No Death, No Fear by Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh. If you would help me while I read this, please hold a fond memory of Robert. The day my mother died, I wrote in my journal, a serious misfortune of my life has arrived. I suffered for more than 1 year after the passing of my mother, but one night, in the highlands of Vietnam, I was sleeping in the hut of my hermitage. I dreamed of my mother. I saw myself sitting with her, and we were having a wonderful talk. She looked young and beautiful, her hair flowing down. It was so pleasant to sit there with her and talk, as if she had never died. When I woke up, it was about 2 a.m, and I felt very strongly that I had never lost my mother. The impression that my mother was still with me was very clear. I understood then that the idea of having lost my mother was just an idea. It was obvious in that moment that my mother is always alive in me. I opened the door and went outside. The entire hillside was bathed in moonlight. It was a hillside covered in tea plants, and my hut was set behind the temple halfway up. Walking slowly in the moonlight through rows of tea plants, I noticed my mother was with me. She was the moonlight caressing me, as she had done so often. Very tender and very sweet and wonderful. Each time my feet touched the earth, I knew my mother was there with me. I knew this body was not mine, but a living continuation of my mother and my father and my grandparents, of all my ancestors. Those feet that I saw as my feet were actually our feet. Together, my mother and I were leaving footprints in the damp soil. From that moment on, the idea that I had lost my mother no longer existed. All I had to do was look at the palm of my hand, feel the breeze on my face, or the earth under my feet, to remember that my mother is always with me, available at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to stand here in the light because I like to see all your faces. And sorry, family, you're going to have to deal with looking at my back. Most of these folks have heard my stories anyway, so it's okay. I'm going to start our sharing time. Most of you know who I am, and I've met most of you. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Arwen. I'm Robert's daughter. I've been the fortunate recipient of having Robert as a father, which is, as any of you who have had a good dad know, is an incredible gift. So when I was 6, before I entered first grade, my dad told me all the swear words and what they meant so that I would be prepared. Before middle school, I remember we were eating dinner one night, and he explained that I'd be hitting puberty soon, and there'd be these changes in my body, and I'd start thinking about relationships and having sex, and I was like, "Ugh, Dad, I'm trying to eat." And but he was thinking ahead, you know. So by the time I got to almost high school, he just handed me an Altoid can full of condoms, and I was like, "Okay, thanks." And I gotta say that those conversations helped me in life. They really made a difference for me as I was trying to move through becoming a person in this world. And so in the last 2 years since the loss of his parents, we started talking about his death. And I am now extremely thankful and grateful that we had those conversations because they have helped me now. So many of you don't know the story of what happened to Robert, and so I'm going to briefly tell it so everybody knows what happened. On August 19th, he had a great day. He was building the shed that you saw them building there in the slideshow, and that was in honor of his father. And had a good day, had a good breakfast, lunch and dinner, had dinner with the family, was in great spirits, went to bed just fine. There was no indication of anything wrong at all. Thinking probably around midnight he had some kind of seizure in bed and then got up to get help. He was able to turn the light on, but he fell in his room, and Grandma Marlene, who lives downstairs, heard the thump, and so she came up and found him on the floor, and he was alert and kind of reaching for her, and so she called for Laura. Laura came and was right there with him, said he was clear-eyed, and said it's a seizure. And then he had another one and stopped breathing. So she did some CPR, and then her son Luke came and did CPR. And then they had paramedics come and work on him. Laura called me at about the time that they pronounced him dead. And I came over about 10 minutes later. And we sat with him. And we held his hand, and we talked, and we were with him as he was leaving his body. When I got there, he was still warm like alive, and I was holding him, and we got to have those moments together. And he was still very much present. So I feel blessed to have been able to do that. As a Buddhist, my dad wanted to be present during his death. He had made me promise that I would not let anyone put him on morphine or any kind of other opiates or any kind of drugs because he wanted to be present for the passing. And all I could think of was, oh, great. So he's going to be begging me in bed on pain, and I'm going to have to, remember what you said, Dad? But he also wanted, like I think probably most of us don't want a prolonged, horrid death. We want to go quick. And he got what he wanted. So although it was sooner than any of us ever wanted, and I think even he wasn't thinking it was going to happen, it was what he wanted. And so I am grateful for that. So how do we make sense of this? Grief is a weird experience, and each of us deal with it differently. I want to speak to grief a little bit because I think we all were so touched by Robert that we all have a different experience with it. I want to say, I've heard people say, oh, you got to be strong for Laura and Arwen. And I want to say that to me, for you to be strong for me is to be yourself. Do exactly what you need to do. And everyone is doing it in their way that is different, that they need to do. You need to cry, you cry. You need to be alone, you be alone. You need to be with others, you be with others. Maybe in combination of all of those things. I don't think there's a right way to go about it. The only wrong way is to tell other people how to do it. Just make note. That's right. Thank you for saying that. We need to laugh. Thank you, son. For me, I think it comes in waves. I was very close with my dad. He was one of my deepest friends. And I know that we are connected. I don't even have any question of that. And so the loss is, it's more like I can't have him in front of me, as you know, I can't have him hug me. I can't call him up and ask him for advice, those kinds of things. But it doesn't mean that he's not present with me, and I have already found him speaking to me, through me, all of that, visiting me in ways that I knew he would, and he is. And so I want to invite any of you and all of you to open your minds to those possibilities. Robert will visit you. Robert will say hi. Robert will come to you in ways you might not be predicting, but he will. And no, that's him. He's there. I also think, for me, you know, it's not always, the tears aren't always about sadness. They're about the bigness of this. It's just big and a huge adjustment. And for those of us close to him, it's a huge adjustment. And so, you know, the feelings are bigger than can stay inside, and they just have to come out. And I just want to normalize that. That's okay. If you need guideposts that might help you to know that Robert thought that this body thing is just a vehicle, our life spirits are eternal. He believed in reincarnation. You never know where he's going to pop up, so just... when we were with him and his body there, after he died, his body died, I should say, he... was there, here, we could feel him then. And then over time, an hour or two sitting there, I could feel that, no, he's not in the body anymore. And, I was just kind of sitting there looking at him in the quiet. And as if to prove the point, I hear this, I sort of felt his impatience all of a sudden kind of fill me. And then as if coming through the back of my head was this message of, what are you looking down there for? I'm up here. And I... instinctively looked up, and I knew if I could have seen him, I would have seen him. He was just, he's messing with me. Same sense of humor as a ghost. That's what my son just said. My dad believed, as many Buddhists do, that we create our own suffering through our attachments, thoughts, expectations, and such. He also believed that actively working to emanate love towards fellow humans, creating meaningful relationships, being as real with himself, flaws and all, who was moving towards enlightenment. And I will assure you that Robert was no saint. As anyone who has been in the car during a road rage incident will attest. He owned his mistakes, and he openly shared those lessons for all of us to learn from with him. And for that, I am also grateful. Many of his teachings have come through my whole life, but have impacted my parenting, how I do my work, how I have relationships, all of those things. All because we just talked about it all the time. I was blessed to have the opportunity to actually live with my dad as an adult. I got to move back in home with my family, and it allowed us to kind of clear up the cobwebs in our past. And this is another thing I'm so grateful for. We didn't have anything unsaid. We were totally current. And if you think about the relationships in your life that matter, and think about how important that is to come clean, come current, because you don't know when it's going to happen. And it's really special gift that I don't have regrets related to my father. I feel solid. And so going forward, I feel solid. So I had a realization in the shower the other night. Robert taught us how to do this. We know what it feels like. We watch his pictures, we hear his voice, and we know what it was like to be with Robert, what it felt like. You can feel it in you. Well, that's you generating it. He taught us how to feel this in relation to him, in relation to each other, ourselves. And so now we have this gift of the ability to do that. And so if you think of it as that gift, if you don't lose it, you haven't lost Robert. His legacy is that we evoke these qualities, these feelings, these values in ourselves and with each other as medicine. Medicine for our hearts and our communities, and that we do this for each other. And imagine if we could all be remembered in this way. Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories. All right, people. Who's next? Laura, do you want to be up front or walk?
All right, I'll get this over with. Microphones are something I haven't done much. I will say I'm the second luckiest woman in the world. Arwen had him as a dad, but I had him as my best friend too. And I could tell you all that I didn't jump in the sack with him on our first date, but I did. But we had known each other for 20 years, and it was this sacred vessel of community that held us. And it was really special to know someone deeply in that way. I think I was 23, and he was about 32 when we met in main camp. And then 20 years later, it took him about 10 days to move in with me. And there were a lot of kids at my house. Maybe about 14. And the first night he stayed there, he got up in the morning and was going to be a man and go check on the kids. And he came back to bed and he said, "There's 28 pair of shoes down there." and I said, "Just get back in bed, honey." He was amazing to be so willing to jump in with all that youthful activity. And we did a lot of camping. We had a lot of fun. And there's a million things I could say, but thank you all. And I feel very, very grateful.
Joined at the hip. God, is she not the most beautiful woman that
We come from good people.
Okay, I better put my glasses on. My name is Mary. I'm the baby sister. I have an Oregon Country Fair name. It's the Long Tom Girl. This family thanks you so much for being here and sharing your love and support. I'm just blessed to be here in this wonderful little village of you all. I'm going to share with you some memories and experiences and parts of life that Bobby had with his family. So bear with me. Bobby and I were 20 years apart. And it's hard to get to know someone when you're several miles apart and such an age difference but that did change. I'm going to start with when Bobby was little. I don't know if you all know his story about his little pinky. He fell through a window and cut his pinky finger almost off, and the doctor sewed it to his chest to do a graft, his belly. Put a body cast on him. His pinky healed fine, but ended up with more skin than the doctor anticipated, and also later in life grew chest hair. Bobby used to use this to his advantage and make a joke out of it by showing the kids mainly. Well, I got a kick out of it when I was an adult, though, too. What a magic trick he had. So he would put his thumb to his mouth and pretend, thank you, you're doing it right, and pretend to blow up his pinky. It made people smile, and my brother had a great way of doing that. In January of 1968, Bobby was home for Christmas break. Yeah, I think so. From either Oregon State or Oregon State University. So you tell me, was he a Beavers fan or a Ducks fan? Bye. He was bye. My daddy was on the Franz bread route, and Mama told Bobby it was time to go to the hospital to deliver me. And at that time, we lived in Arlington, Oregon, and the drive to Heppner Pioneer Memorial Hospital was at least an hour away. So can you imagine the look on his face? This is winter. So he warms up the 65 Super Sport Chevrolet Impala and heads to Heppner in the snow. They arrive and situate Mama as needed, and the nurse says to Bobby, "You need to wait in the waiting room while we're taking care of your wife." "It's my mother," he says. That's like my favorite story ever. Life changed for my family in about 1968, 1970. Kathy had graduated from the Arlington High School, and I was born, and Daddy and Mama moved us to Heppner. They bought the Heppner Auto Parts store and sold the Franz bread route, which Bobby was active in helping Daddy in both jobs. When he came home for school or vacations, Bobby would bring home this huge St. Bernard named Ragnar. And many friends, which Mama said was typical of him. I ended up doing that. I brought home my brother Tony. He never left. After moving, Bobby had married Linda, and they moved to Heppner so he could help out at the parts store, and he lived on the Drake farm. The Morrow County Fair and Rodeo was held the third weekend of August. That's close to Arwen's birthday. Both Bobby and Linda were heading the band in the parade, with Linda playing the cymbals. So the joke was that Arwen was born with her fingers in her ears. He had a love for music. He played the piano beautifully. And how ironic that my mama's favorite song was Laura's Theme. He also enjoyed playing the French horn. He and Linda engaged themselves with community events, and they were both active in the drama club and the band at the high school before and after Arwen was born. Involvement was a big part of his life, if you didn't know. Bobby moved, and he stuck me with Chris. He didn't leave either. He would bring his family home when he could, and we would spend weekends at the cabin at Parker's Mill, head for the beach, or spend holidays at home. One Christmas, Mama and Daddy and I prepped for a picture I would take with my brothers. We were always playing pranks. I think this is where it started. They both had mustaches and beards. Mama made me a beard with a wig. They had their cowboy hats. I had my Napa cowboy hat. I came around the corner with my beard and my cowboy hat. You should have seen the looks on their faces. It was priceless. My big brother becomes a mystery to me. At this point, I'm growing older and I want to do my own thing. Really not wanting to hang out with my brothers. So Mama sends me to Eugene for a month so I can have quality time with Arwen and Bobby. My first week is at the Oregon Country Fair in 1981 or 82. Would any of you have any idea what that is like at the age of 12 or 13 for a hillbilly child that has been isolated from the outside way of life? Arwen and I slept in a tent near Community Village, I believe. I pretty much kept to myself, but I really wanted to see this amazing parade come through camp. They had their instruments, they were chanting and singing. It was amazing. They were much smaller than. I was told here that, we didn't have the Ritz back then. You take a shower, and they were semi-private, and it was a reckless shack with a hose. Yeah, I was feeling like I was in the Twilight Zone. I wasn't understanding, and I knew that there was more to this, and there would be later in my life. But I'm going to tell you, things got worse, because when I'm 12 or 13 and the parade came back through, I was waiting, I was watching, I was excited, thinking something different's going to happen. It did, because y'all came through naked. God, I was mortified.
How many pages you got there?
A lot. So my brother told me that he can't talk. That's bullshit, because I know you can, so I'm doing it for both of us. So holidays and breaks come and go, and Bobby's desperately trying to have communication with me. I told Mama, I'm not going back there. I'm hurrying. I'm talking faster. He was genuinely loving and made sure I knew there was a connection. In 1989, I had a rough patch, and Bobby came running, and he held my hand, giving me uplifting words of encouragement. At that point, I knew I needed this beautiful man in my life. And so he and I chose to be committed to this brother-sister relationship. In 1992, Arwen and Jason were married. Bobby had a beautiful venue for them at his home. He was so happy. My son Drew was about 4 or 5 years old when Bobby came home for Christmas. He surprised Drew by dressing up as Santa. An hour later, Drew surprised Bobby with his Santa costume. We had lots of laughter, lots of food. We played hearts really late with Mama and Daddy. Bobby liked to take things on. He was a leader and he loved his time with his family, so he'd organize the Despain reunions in the Dalles. He enjoyed genealogy and worked on Allstott and Despain heritage for years. Bobby turns 50 years old and a surprise party was held, a thrill of a lifetime event. My son's eyes almost popped out of his head when he saw Bobby's friend swallow a sword and breathe fire. Yeah, that's a dragon friend. Brother Chris turned 40 years old, so we planned a family celebration at Wallowa Lake. Bobby captivated us all with his bubble magic. Drew was mesmerized and looked up to Bobby so much. Everything Uncle Bobby did was magical. A proud moment when his first grandchild, Malachi, is born in 1996. Seven. I'm trying to get through this. So many photos and phone calls letting us know what his grandson was experiencing and learning. As my wedding day approached to marry my wonderful husband, Sean, I had not a notion that my brothers and my sister would call me on my shit. The rehearsal happened and no pranks. My wedding day came and no pranks. The morning we all got together to have breakfast and clean up was a different story. Prior to the wedding, my family had a funeral for our Uncle Freddie in California. I couldn't attend. Bobby and Chris went down with Mama and Daddy. This is where it all started, so keep that in mind. They had to stay in a motel, so they were comfy cozy. They called to check in on me, and I made some remark about Chris being able to come out of the closet because he was in San Francisco. So Chris was the middle child, and I never saw him much, so a long-time joke was that he was always in the closet. That's where Mom and Dad kept him. I obviously said the wrong thing, and they took it to another level. They planned 4 months. So my poor Sean and I were asked to come to the back room to discuss something the day after our wedding. I was so scared. What's going on? My family of many greets us with these smiles and giggles, and I'm now screwed. Bobby and Chris present me with 2 cards. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, sweet, money. But that's not what I received. I read the card I was handed first. You want to read it? The first card, which is made by my sister. Wedding bells, your day is finally here. We wish you total happiness. We wish you total cheer. We wish for understanding and what we're about to reveal. Please, please understand, it's just the way we feel. Because of the meaning of today and you knowing what love's about, we know that you will understand. We just really needed out. There's a picture of my brothers naked in bed. Happy wedding day and night too, tee-hee. I then was told to read the second card. Sweet money. No money. Twinkie dinky, little sis. We're so happy with your wedded bliss. Up until now, we couldn't decide whether to tell you or continue to hide. But today is proof of your belief in true love. So we've come to the conclusion, enough is enough. That's what I said. They're still in bed naked. We are tickled pink and pleased as can be that you are now happy, and so now are we. Love you always. Yeah, I've been looking for those cards forever. Laura and Bobby, they get married at their beautiful home on Friendly Street. Happy hearts, good music, good food, and good company. Then I was told another reception was to be held and that I may not want to attend because everyone would be naked. Did that really happen? No. Oh, you don't know? Partial. We've had graduations, weddings, and births. Now with Luke, April, Kenan, Malachi, Liam, Tavi, and soon baby Lane. This family likes to party. Bobby would send pictures and videos and Marco Polos of their family gatherings. He loved you all so much. Okay, now, why do I have the name the Long Tom Girl? Why? My brother Chris and I told Bobby we were going down to the Drum Fest, which is called Drum Tower, which happened to be by the river. We head back at 3 a.m. and I have to urinate. So there's no waiting. Chris grabs my possessions and turns around. I take the second step over what I thought was the fence, turns out to be a barricade, and I fall 20 feet into the Long Tom River. Long story short, Mary falls. No, I can't walk on water. I did urinate. And now someone has to call Bobby and tell him his sister has fallen into the river at 3 a.m. He's like, what? Ends up, he takes me to the hospital in town, and I had broken my arm. Bobby was very supportive. I told him he needed to tell Mom and Daddy because he was good at smoothing things over. He was always my protector. Daddy made me a wooden sign that reads Mary Falls. It's a ritual that Chris and Bobby and I hang that up in that particular place. So I suggest when you come that you check that out. And don't go near the river at night. You know, all my memories and all your memories are unique than entail my brother. He was our friend that was always beside us. Through tears, sorrow, laughter, and fun, he was our savior. We have lost our Aunt Billy, Uncle Buster, Arwen's grandparents, Dick and Donna, Jason's mom, Kathy's brother, and our mama and daddy within 3 years. And that's just our family. Bobby helped put our broken hearts back together. He was our glue, as my daughter-in-law Taylor softly said. And a dear family friend, Pam, has reminded me that Chris and I can be the glue. He was a kind-spirited man, and his love was real and genuine. The smile on his face revealed it in his eyes and his heart. I can always count on him, and he was only a phone call away to offer support, to say, I'll be there and I love you, sis. He had a giving heart and a hand to any one of us here today. He lived his life true to himself, to his family, and to his community. Such an honest man with integrity, just as our folks taught us. I think about how hard he worked and how excited he was about his new home with Laura. I'm almost done, Arwen. I will miss your wisdom and how you would have shaped the rest of my life and my children's and now my grandchildren's. I feel so ever proud, thankful, and fortunate that you were my big brother. You shared with many your humor, generosity, sensitivity, love, courage, faith, vision, stories, dedication, and strength. So please be with us to continue these values we need in ourselves. This magic you gave was happiness within that we want to continue with others. Thank you for letting me be myself and putting me up with me and making sure I'm simply okay. Even if Daddy asked you to. This is when you showed me how to be strong and how to hang on, because life would take me on all sorts of rides. I'm hoping you completed your major mission in life. You had a beautiful daughter inside and out. You married your sweetie that gained you 3 more amazing children, and in return giving you 4 wonderful grandchildren. We are trying to find a meaning for all this suffering, and we may not. So hang on to the rest of us. We have each other. Sweet, sunny, soft, and gentle. You are a precious gift to us all. You made a difference, and we are so grateful that we had you in our lives. As I looked through pictures and letters you wrote to Daddy and Mama, I found one that distinctively stood out. I immediately felt your thoughts and your pain and the man that you were in that time of your life. So I am sharing with you all a poem he wrote that was the time in his life that he was trying to understand who he was and what his beliefs were. Through this poem and letter, he stated that this gave him a road to follow for his next beliefs and whom he was.
Oh, I'm going to read it. When was this written?
I don't know, but I
You have more? All right, here we go. I feel a spirit within my heart that gives me great joy and peace. It seems that now, at last, I'm free from all powers binding my ease. A new life has resulted within, one that is a source of its own. It dwells and surges and laughs and cries and hints of greater things unknown. This is hilarious. It tells me to relax, to trust in Jesus for all my trials or needs. It says, stop, let go, abide in me, and go where the Spirit leads. Did he get this out of a Hallmark card? Sorry. It loves through me and lives through me, and it says, I'll never cease to give you life and give you love and give you assuring peace. My son has died so you may live, so stand and walk in him. Look in the light that he provides and know it will never grow dim.
Okay, so this was written probably years ago, but it's something that captured my eye. And all of us trying to heal and the things that we go through is right there. Bobby, you left us too soon. Our hearts hurt. We will hang on to your memories and the love you shined upon us. We have learned from you to engage and love each other, to embrace. It is not goodbye, Bobby. It's see you later in the spirit in the sky. I love you, brother. Peace out. Your sis.
All right. I'm locking the mic out. Can you hear me now? Okay. So we have a special treat. I'll let Denny. Working now? Can you pull your chair over here? The Starship. You want to introduce it?
And thank you, Arlen. And